What's up, guys? It's the League Dad here, coming at you with another episode. Yes, the third episode this week of the All In Podcast. We're a podcast for casual leaguers, and today we had to do a 9.8, a patch rundown of 9.8, which dropped today live. So we want to go ahead and talk about some of the things that might be pertinent to you as far as what you're going to see, what you should probably be looking at or paying close attention. Even if you don't play that particular champ, it's always good to be aware of things that are happening. So we're going to try to hit you with the most relevant information. That way, you know what's going on and you won't fail miserably in solo queue like I do always. But I'm excited to have two new co-hosts with me today. You guys already know Style on him 123. He is returning again, adding some input as well. So he's back here. But we have two new co-hosts. The first one is King Jeebus, and we have Superman Casting. And as tradition, I like to have them do a brief introduction of who they are, their history with League, how they got into the game, and where they're at now with it, and what they're currently playing and enjoying. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you, King Jeebus. Give us a little history and a brief introduction about yourself and your relationship to the game.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of League of Legends, I've been playing since Season 2, which makes it about 7 years now, I guess. I've been Diamond for the past 3 seasons, and I also have been playing on the official university team for Indiana University and Collegiate League of Legends for the past 2 years. So,
who's your favorite champion?
Malzahar.
Oh, I instantly felt my stomach hurt when you said that. Okay, cool. Superman, let's start with you. Let's go to you. Give us a brief intro about yourself.
Thanks. I'm Superman Casting. Been a shoutcaster for the semi-pro or amateur scene for 5 years now. Playing League since Season 3. I'm a high elo support main. Janna. I'm a dirty Janna main. I own it. I'm sorry.
Ooh, Style's not going to like you at all. I can already feel him cringing. You're going to have to live with that, Style. Get over it.
I enjoy analyzing League of Legends and been casting for a few different LCS Academy teams for a while now. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's great. I would love to cast a game with you sometime, but keep in mind, I'm going to say first and foremost that I have no casting experience. It will be very bad. But if, you want an old man on, to co-cast with you, I'm there.
Hey,
I could do lots of laughs, lots of very bad jokes, and I will get all the skills wrong and all the names wrong, but you know what? That's okay. Okay. So thank you for the introduction, guys. And like I said, today's episode it's going to be takeaways and predictions. What we want to do is look at the patch notes, right? And look at probably maybe the most significant things. There might not be a lot of huge things, but try to predict what's going to happen in this meta, if anything at all. Maybe certain champs or certain items you should pay closer attention to. That way, when you're getting on there, you can make the proper decisions. And then, like I said, next week, next Monday, we're going to do a fact-checked episode and actually see if some of these things, the buffs and nerfs, have done anything or affected the Rift at all. So let's just start with opening thoughts. What do you guys think about patch 9.8? Were you guys excited about anything? Were you guys kind of like, was there anything that stuck out? And let's just start with you, King Jeebus, and then we'll work down the line. So start with you, King Jeebus. What are your thoughts on patch 9.8 overall?
Yeah, so overall, I think it's not going to change anything too much. Most of the buffs and nerfs that they're doing are fairly small, but I feel like the overall direction of it is sort of trying to push us towards a tank meta, towards at least a tankier meta. And so then the question is, does it push us enough in that direction, or is it still going to be more about damage, which is something that I'm not sure about yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess we'll look at some of those changes that have been made in this patch to kind of see specifically what it seems they're doing as far as items and champions goes to kind of push us in that direction. What about you, Style? Anything stick out to you on these patch notes?
I'm glad to see the Zed nerf, and
yeah.
I don't think it affected ADCs too much. So ADCs are still the same. I think the only ADC that got touched was Jhin. And that's only trap, so it doesn't really matter. And I don't like that E can run through minions, because now he can run it down mid even faster and kill me.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that.
It's like
Okay.
old Hecarim
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
and
Bring it
Fizz,
back.
I think.
And Fizz. Okay, cool. Superman casting. What about you? Any thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I'm absolutely on the same page. I think this is clearly a tank meta on the horizon, mostly coming from the jungle, though. I'm not sure it changes much out of top lane. I
Mhm.
think the Cinderhulk buffs and the Bramble buffs will definitely come into play for Sejuani, who also got buffed. Will make a rise. Maybe some Nautilus if it's not just going to be pro on that for a mid lane pick. And we'll probably talk
Right.
about that later. But yeah, tank meta from the jungle. I'm skeptical about it affecting, say, top lane, where you see some of those flex picks come through.
For sure. Okay, sounds good. All right, let's go ahead and get right into it then. And what do you guys think, in your opinion, is the most important thing? I'm gonna let anybody just chime in here, so don't be shy to jump in. What do you think is the most or the biggest thing about patch 9.8? If you had to pick one, your top one, what's the biggest thing?
I think it's the Blade of the Ruined King nerf.
I'm gonna
and
go ahead
mostly
and go
because, yeah, I would say mostly Blade of the Ruined King nerf. The 100 gold added to that, to the Bilgewater Cutlass, and then of course
Mhm.
that's part of the total cost. I think it's the most important part of this patch because of the context of the rest of this patch. We've all here said, look, it's a tank meta, it's coming, right? And mostly from the jungle and health stacking on Cinderhulk. Well, what's the counter to that? Blade of the Ruined King and champions that can use that item well. But
Mhm.
at 100 gold, it's a little rough. It's not like adding 400 gold or some crazy cost to it, but it hurts, especially because it's on the Cutlass end where that
Mhm.
early spike of being able to trade in
Yeah.
lane, you get delayed even longer.
Yeah, I've been playing Akali this month, and even though I don't go Blade of the Ruined King, I still have to get Cutlass for Gunblade. That sucks. But just having to wait. But good point. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys got anything to add to that, Blade of the Ruined King, or do you have any other things that you think are bigger than that?
So when I look at this, I think what I think is the biggest individual change in terms of like buffs, nerfs to champions, I think the Ornn change looks to be
Okay.
extremely powerful for him because effectively they're adding 1,000 gold worth of stats to 3 of his passive items,
Okay.
but not to his other passive items. And the items they're adding stats to are all tank items. So Ornn will always build 2 of those to get the free upgrade. So it's effectively a free 2,000 gold for him once he's hitting that upgrade point, and then potentially more than that if he has teammates who can build these tankier items. I think that's something that's really going to put.
Yeah, and let me
Ornn
just read
back
it
on the
out
map.
for those who don't know right off the top of their head what the Ornn buff was. So the passive Living Forge, Forge Fire Cape, the health increase from 625 to 750, and armor increase from 90 to 100. Frozen Fist, armor increase from 95 to 125, and Infernal Mask, health increase from 550 to 750, and magic resist increase from 90 to 100. So it looks like they're gonna bulk them up a little bit there. Okay, interesting. And then let me recap with the Blade of the Ruined King. Basically, the nerf was that the increase it got increased by 100 gold, specifically on the Cutlass side. So Cutlasses cost a little bit more. Style, do you have anything to add? Agree, disagree, or add?
Yeah, I think even though it's going to be tank meta, I'm glad they buffed Trundle, because that
That's true.
Trundle is like a tank destroyer, right? With his
True.
ultimate, so you build a bunch of armor and then he just steals it all.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the things I like to see, and the fact that ever since Trundle couldn't chomp towers, no one's actually touched him in top lane.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
I've seen
And
him
so,
like every so often in jungle, and like let's say like I've seen him in support like once every like 100 games or like 50 games. So
Yeah.
I rarely see any Trundle, but I'm glad he's getting like some sort of. I'm glad that I don't mind that they're making tanks stronger as long as they give like some sort of counter to it.
yeah, and go ahead, jump in.
I was just going to say, generally, I think, as Style was saying, Trundle doesn't really belong in the top lane right now, even with these changes. Yeah, they're clear buffs, especially with the R cooldown. I think that'll come huge out of the jungle, especially with the Sejuani being buffed. She'll show up more. Trundle's a great counter. But in top lane, the champions that are reigning supreme up there, it crushed Trundle in lane. He doesn't really belong there right now.
Yeah, and I think top lane has just got a lot of really strong champs in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that makes him a little bit harder to play up there. But let me read over his buffs. So the Q Chomp, the bonus damage went from 20 scaling to 80. Now it starts at 20, but it scales to 100 this time. And then R, Subjugate, cooldown started at 110 and scaled down to 70. Now it starts at 100 and scales down to 60. So lower cooldown there. Okay. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, those are pretty decent changes. We'll have to see how they play it on the Rift. Because again, like we were mentioning, some of these changes look fairly, small, I guess. But it could have a deeper impact with the overall scheme of multiple things being changed into what King Jabus was saying, and how you guys were kind of agreeing is that maybe we're moving into a shift into more of a tanky meta. If that's the case, let me just get your thoughts real quick. What do you guys think about that? if it does move on to a tank meta, because we've had eras where the tank meta was just awful. It was there and it was just felt like you just couldn't do anything. They were doing tons of damage and you just couldn't kill them. What do you guys think about that?
I think.
Oh.
Go ahead.
So I think the tank meta. It sort of depends on what you mean by tank meta, because I think right now tanks in general are just not that good. So in terms of the tank meta, it's like, do we mean that tanks will be part of the meta or that tanks will be defining the meta, which I think is not clear yet. But I think one thing that looks to me like they're doing with these patches is it looks to me like they are trying to push us towards a meta where like you can pick more tanks, but then they're also buffing a lot of the counters to tanks. Like we're getting Gnar buffs, we're getting Fiora buffs.
Yeah, definitely.
We're getting Trundle buffs, things that will be able to answer these tanks if they do start to show up more. So I think I don't know if this is like a conscious decision on their part where they're buffing these champs to like prepare them for the tank meta or not, but if it is, I think that's shows some really good foresight from them.
Yeah, it was good. Good to distinguish there between what tank meta is. Is it just making tanks relevant again, or is it going to be to the point where they're taking over? Go ahead.
I just don't think this is much of a patch at all on the solo queue side. I mean, they start out by introducing it as the MSI patch. This is what competitive will be played on for our first real taste of international play this year, and it's clearly showing a little bit of favoritism towards teams that rely on team fighting front to back. You have a strong front line, a strong back line, and you play team fights front to back. When you bring tanks back to the jungle, I'm talking the Sejuani, I'm talking Trundle as well as an answer to it. Even the Amumu, I wouldn't really expect to see it in competitive play, but showing that they want these engaged CC champions to come back out of the jungle and make plays come mid-game on the competitive scene shows what Riot seems to want to see at MSI. They want to see bloody team fights in the mid game. But when you're talking solo queue, I mean, maybe we should spend some time talking about Kayn, because that's really the hugest change to any single champion. Maybe Renekton too, that these are solo queue champions. Let's
talk about that. No, let's talk about that, because I actually just played a game with one of our viewers who went Shadow Kayn and played this. It was really fun. Granted, it was a normal game, but he was having a blast and was killing it. So let me just read it off real quick. So Kayn Shadow Assassin, the Shadow Step, the cooldown went from 21 scaling down to 13. Now it's just 8 seconds at all ranks, and that's a huge cooldown buff on Shadow Step. And so Superman, since you brought it up, tell us what that kind of implies with, that being such a huge cooldown. First of all, explain what Shadow Step does to any listener who might not understand.
So what this does for Shadow Kayn is you're less of that bruiser that comes in, spell vamps their way through the fight, and your damage has to come from essentially just being a bruiser. You're trading, you're fighting, you're being scrappy on the back end. But if you're Shadow Kayn, then what you can do is you go for those assassination plays. And the hardest part about that has always been, you can get in, But
You
after
can't
you
get
do
out.
your job, yeah, could you
Yeah.
get out? Now,
Yeah.
8 seconds, that's like a third of what it was at the first rank and
Yeah.
and just over half the final rank. And so what
Yeah.
this allows you to do, you sneak in, you deal your damage, you ult, and by the time your ult is over, you can sneak back out through
Yep.
any escape route. It's so
Hmm.
strong.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed when we were playing that game. It was just like it was awesome. Like he'd try to one shot somebody. If he couldn't, he'd just go into the wall, and then he'd come back and try again. And if not, he'd just get out. I was like, yo, this is. He's on my team, but I'm already getting annoyed. I'm like, this sucks. I can't get. If he can't get out, he ults you. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is broken. We did win that game, but I definitely had empathy for the other team. All right, what about you guys, King Jibis or Style? Any thoughts on this?
I would
Shadow
still think that Red Cane is better if it's tank meta, right? If you're talking about tank meta, Red Cane is always better when you have tanks, right? Because he does percentage health damage, and he heals. I think he heals a percentage of his health, right? I'm not too sure on the
I'm not sure.
second part, but I know he definitely does percentage health damage. And into tanks, when you can just keep healing, I just think Red Cane is so much better. I think I had like a 75% win rate on top Cane going red, and I had like a KDA of like 0.1 or something. Like my KDA was terrible, but you just get to like team fights at the end, and you just keep healing.
It's true. That's. I mean, if you guys have ever played against a late game, Red Cane, it's incredibly annoying to play against that. It's a lot of healing for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I think that even if Shadow Cane becomes strong, I don't think it will be like overpowered like Cane was, like Red Cane is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can cancel him going through the wall and things like that, but you can't the problem with Red Cane is you just can't kill him. He's such a beefy frontline, and if you build things like Death Dance and GA, you just can't kill him. With
I think though the whole idea though is that like it gives Shadow Cane more of and become more of an option, because if you do need like maybe a higher damage champion, he isn't totally worthless after he gets in, because he can actually weave in and out. And so while he might not be as unkillable as Red Cane, he still has options to be harder to kill, even if he can't one shot somebody. And I think that might be what they're trying to, because you hardly ever saw anybody build Blue Cane. But I do think maybe with this change, let's just face it too, man, Blue Cane is super fun. It's fun to play. So I mean, I do think we'll probably see it more. King Jibis, did you have any thoughts on this?
I think maybe one thing that hasn't been mentioned about this buff is that it's not just his in combat that's affected. It's like more out of combat. His map movement. He can move around the map extremely quickly.
Oh yeah.
So I don't play Cane, but I assume that you max your W and your Q before your E for both forms. So that means that this buff, it's effectively like a 21 to 8 second cooldown reduction for most of the game, right? Up until level 13. And so you can really get around the map a lot faster. But I do feel like this kind of pushes Blue Cane to being sort of a noob stomping champion, where it's like if you have good vision of Cane, like the Blue Cane is not going to be that effective. Especially if it is a tankier meta. If you can, Cane's not going to do anything in front to back team fights at all with Blue Cane. So I think it's. I haven't seen, I don't even remember the last time I've seen Blue Cane in solo queue.
Me neither.
I can't even say anything about how good
I've
it is.
seen a few.
But
you've seen a few, and what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think if you're against squishies, then Blue Cane is really good. Especially if you have things like Soraka, where you just have to kill Soraka, and then you just you can just win fights if you kill the Soraka. I think with the Blue Cane you need. I mean, they both take very little skill when it comes to later on, because with Blue Cane you can just smite out and then Q, and you kill someone.
Yeah. Well,
I think the Blue Cane's just super high risk, high reward, and they're diving into that a little bit more. I appreciate Riot lowering the cooldown on this to give Cane players a chance to choose, because
Mhm.
they kind of said in the notes here, you never really get to play Shadow Assassin unless
Yeah.
you're against 5 squishies.
Yeah,
And since they're
exactly.
pushing towards that more tank meta, I like how Style on him was talking about the healing and you can like drain tank your way through the fight, which brings me
Mhm.
into another part of this patch that I think is a curious immediate response to that, which is the Bramble buffs.
Yeah,
Does the
let's look at
reduce
that.
the grievous healing, the grievous wounds healing reduction is
Yeah,
huge.
it's
And things
huge.
start
Yeah.
building that against high AD teams.
Yeah. Yeah, let's read it real quick. So the duration of grievous wounds from Bramble Vest has been increased. So it was 1 second, now it's 3 seconds. So 3 times what it was. That's pretty significant. Um, and grievous wounds again, that helps prevent any of those healers. So what kind of effect is this going to have? Thoughts on the Bramble Vest buff, guys?
It comes
Uh,
down to the fact that if you can reduce healing, then it makes it harder
Mm.
for DPS champions to maintain their strength in team fights. A lot of the meta right now is dominated by these on-hit carries, or we're talking Nico, Vayne, the Blade of Ruin King, Rush,
Mhm.
or champions of that nature. They don't burst you down. They have to take their time chasing you and
Yep.
whittling down your health bar over a greater period of time. And when you're trading back, it's their healing that keeps them on top. This seriously undermines that strategy.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Good. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a buff that really makes a lot of sense. Like it says in the patch notes, they're making the duration of it consistent with the other items. So executioners and Morellos,
That's true. Yep.
they have the grievous wounds last for 3 seconds. So the thing about having a 1 second debuff is that it doesn't help against a lot of champions with things like Conquer if they're not auto attacking you every
That's
second.
true.
So, like for
Yeah.
instance, we are just talking about Kane. If you look at Red Kane, his ult lasts for 2.5 seconds. So if he auto attacks you and then ults, if he had Bramble Vest before, it doesn't do anything to him. He can just let his ult run for the full duration and then pop out and get the full healing from it. But now if it's 3 seconds, if he auto
Mhm.
attacks and ults you, it will be reduced. And so things like that
Yeah,
really
that'd be
start to
interesting to
add up.
see. Yeah, for sure. And the to go along with the Cinder Hulk, because we were kind of talking about in the same vein, but they didn't actually. It looks like they didn't actually apply the change in 9.7. They changed the tooltip, but they didn't actually make the change until now. So it's actually live now. Let's talk a little bit about the Cinder Hulk buff, guys. What do you guys think of the Cinder Hulk buff? My gosh, buff. And what do you guys think? Do you think we'll see more of the junglers who typically buy Cinder Hulk, and how's that going to affect the overall gameplay? Anybody can jump in.
Uh, so
Yeah.
so I think, I mean, obviously this will, this is one of those things where it's like you look at this and you think Riot is trying to push towards the tankier meta, right? Because obviously tanks are the ones that want to get Cinderhook. I'm not really sure how effective this will be, because I feel like in terms of like this buff, it changes. Instead of doing 200% magic damage, you do 300% bonus magic damage to the jungle camps. But I don't know how much this actually matters. I don't play jungle enough to know, but I feel like by the time you have Cinderhulk, you're already clearing your camps
Pretty
fairly
fast.
quickly. So
Okay.
it may be one of those things where it looks good, but I'm not convinced that it will make that much of a difference by itself. But along with the other changes, I think it's just sort of, just one more thing to pile on to the list of buffs to tanks.
Gotcha.
I think we'll see Jax jungle making a comeback because of it. The tank Jax.
Oh yeah. I would not want to see that.
Agreed.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about. So we talked about those things. Is there anything else that before we just kind of run through the stuff, the changes that have been made? Is there anything else in particular that you guys wanted to make a note for the listeners? Like, is there anything that if you had to tell them something about the patch other than the things that you've already said, is there anything else that you would like them to know about 9.8?
ARM's so much better now.
Really? So
Yeah.
you like it that they got rid of the bans, huh?
Yeah, I really was excited about the bans when they added that because I'm like, oh,
Uh-huh.
thank goodness, I don't have to play against Ziggs every game, right?
Right.
But because of their they're taking actual approach to balancing now,
Uh-huh.
then the game is becoming quite bland. It was at least last patch where people are banning out those super OPs that they're sick of playing against, and then the somewhat strong champions just feel kind of muted. So
Yeah,
I'm glad
and
they took away bans, but they're still keeping an eye on balance.
and I know they like there was I think it was on the front page of Reddit. Like people were upset that the bans were gone. They were like, "Why did they just make this permanent?" But Riot said that the feedback that they got was that overall people didn't like the bans. Which
There were
I don't
bans on ARAM.
For a short time.
for the short time
Okay.
for the Butcher's Bridge event. But you know the thing is
I
like
still haven't played ARAM.
yeah, that's the thing. Like I'm a cat. Like I barely play ARAM, but you know in the few times that I do, you know it doesn't like I know who the champions are that are strong. So when I did play it actually a little bit
Yeah.
more with the Butcher's Bridge, and for me as a casual ARAM player, like who hardly plays, I'm talking about maybe once, twice a month, if that. I liked it. I was like, okay, that's cool. But I'm wondering if it's maybe the people that play ARAM, maybe not like a majority of the time, but more consistently of the time, have noticed that the bans in general for the health of ARAM as a fun, you know, funner game mode, that it actually made it just stale, and rather have some kind of, you know, some kind of variance there, if anything, to just spice it up a little bit, because ARAM is supposed to be a fun game mode without being super oppressive. So that is a pretty big change to the ARAM mode. Okay. Anything else Chingjibis styled? Any other notes before we just run down the list real quick? Listeners want to?
No, I don't know anything about ARAM. I still haven't done my my play one Butcher's Bridge game quest or whatever it's called.
I
You
think
missed
it's
out.
already expired.
You missed out. It's gone.
Oh
Dunzo.
no, what a shame.
What a shame. Styles along the camps of he only plays ranked. He's like, if it's not ranked, it's a waste. Which I get it.
I play ARAM if I have like friends who also play ARAM, but I don't have any of those, so I don't play ARAM.
Yeah. Okay.
None of my friends play ARAM. They either play normals or flex.
Or flex. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and go through the changes real quick. We'll just go right down the line. Amumu. All right. So passive curse touch, bonus true damage. Curse targets take an additional. It was 10%. Now it's 13% of pre-mitigation magic damage as true damage. And the Q bandage toss. Cooldown went from 16 scaling down to 8. Now it starts at 12 and scales down to 8. And the don't leave me part, Mumu now follows his target for up to a reasonable distance from where he casts bandage toss in case targets get out of the stun before he arrives. Any thoughts on that? You think this is going to bring Mumu up at all in gameplay?
My first blush was not, because Amumu just hasn't been really strong. I'm talking like higher elo solo queue and competitive. It just doesn't see that much gameplay. But I'm starting to think, especially think back to NALCS finals and LCK finals, there's a lot of double AP comps being played.
Yeah,
and if Amumu can really add that much of a damage buff and his engage is a little bit more consistent with the Q change, maybe we see him more.
Well, I mean, what is it? How many AP junglers are there really in competitive? We got Elise, and I know Karthus was one. What else is there? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot, unless I'm just missing out. Gragas, okay, but that's pretty much it, right? I don't.
Well, there's the tanks like Sejuani, and even if Nautilus shows up in the jungle, they deal magic damage, but they don't really build.
It's not really, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. Do y'all want to throw in any thoughts on Amumu style or King?
I think unless you're playing like a wombo combo comp, Amumu is pretty useless. I think I've seen him like 2 or 3 games in like 7 years of LCS I've watched. Well, not 7 years, like 5 years. And I think the only time they played it was like when High played it. I think High played it in mid lane.
Mid lane, I remember that.
And then I saw an LCK game where someone picked it in the jungle. I think it was Gen G. I'm not completely sure.
Okay.
But that's like the only 2 times I've seen Amumu. I know
Mhm.
Xmithy used to play a lot of Amumu, but never in LCS itself. But
Well,
altogether,
maybe we'll see
it is.
some interesting comps. It's it seems like we're kind of breaking out of the meta recently competitive. Well, unless Riot makes some significant changes to that, I'd like to see if maybe something comes up. But yeah, I mean, you can finish your thought. Do you have anything else on that?
No, I was just saying that
Okay.
I don't think you will ever see him in LCS or MSI or whatever.
Okay. King, do you have anything on Amumu?
So Amumu, I literally have not seen this champ at all within at least like the past month of solo queue because he has, the obvious weaknesses of being
Mm-hmm.
very vulnerable early on, especially like right now when you have
Yeah.
meta junglers like Jarvan and Rek'Sai. They're just gonna destroy Amumu. So I think these buffs are nice, but I think what would help him more is again if the meta shifts towards a tankier meta, especially tanks in the jungle, because if you're in a Mumu, you'd much rather be playing against something like a Zac
Sure.
rather than a Jarvan or a Rek'Sai. And so it's a lot. If you're playing a Mumu into tanks, you can farm up a lot more safely and then look for team fights. And a Mumu definitely is a champion that can do well in
Yeah, good
team
stuff.
fights. I
Deep
think
fights.
these
Yeah.
buffs by himself maybe not going to make him top tier, but if enough tanks come into the jungle that he has good matchups against, then maybe that could do it for him.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last time a major competitive region, or actually, I'll just say this one's a little bit more spicy. Last time an NA team, like a pro team, got a win was NACS 2014 Spring Series qualifiers, where Ziploc played it. That's like 2014. Was
That's
the
a
last
long
time a
time
team
ago.
got a win with that champion.
Jeez. Yeah. That's a long time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll be seeing it anytime soon, but you never know nowadays. I'm hoping somebody busts it out. Unless they start playing in Korea, then we'll see. Let's move on to Camille. So her base attack speed was increased, went up from 0.625. Now it's up to 0.644. Very small change. The original intent back in the day was they slowed down her attack speed to slow her down in the jungle, and so they're trying to buff it back up because that nerf hurt her in lane. But they think this slight increase will just not make her OP, but at least help her out a little bit top lane. Doesn't seem like anything too big there. Do you guys have anything to add? Otherwise, we'll just move on. I don't think it was a big deal.
Yeah, I
All
got
right.
nothing.
Okay, let's go to Cassiopeia. E cost decreased at later ranks. So Twin Fang E, the cost started at 40, scaling to 80. Now it starts at 40 still, but it scales to 60 this time. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? I don't know if that. Why would that make a difference late game though? I mean, by that time, aren't you having a fully stacked tier and maybe Seraphs? I don't know. Does this do anything to her?
You use mana so much when you're Cassiopeia, and if you
Okay.
miss Q, you're using it like if you're not killing a minion with it, it's gonna cost you even more. So I wouldn't
Okay.
say it's completely useless, but I wouldn't say it's completely useful.
Okay.
It's a nice quality of life change, I would say. It's not a huge balance change where this is somehow going to make Cassiopeia so much stronger than she is already. I think she's still going to come through in compositions where she fits really well, and she'll do better, but not by any statistically significant margin.
I think if anything, it maybe just keeps her in lane more or not having.
I think it's good for solo queue, where my jungler won't give me blue buff.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, cool. Anything to add there, King? Or are you good with that?
I mean, I think they're trying to encourage the Emax style, like they say in the notes, because this buff will only make a difference if you're maxing E, because like the reason that Cass was strong and then eventually got nerfed is because you would like level your Q first and then your W. And so I'm not, and then they nerfed the Q and they nerfed the W. So I'm not sure if with this buff to the mana, it might be enough to bring her back to maxing E, because I'm pretty sure that's what she used to do before people discovered like the Comet Q max build.
Yeah. I was playing.
So
I was playing Cassiopeia before that. Yeah, Comet Q build, and it was always E. Like that's why it was when that build came out. I was like, what? And then you're like, oh snap, that really works.
So
like
this, and again, the tank meta affects this too, because I think in a tank meta you want the E max rather than Q max because you don't poking tanks generally isn't that effective most of the time. You want to be able to just kill them.
Especially if I can't hit my Q.
Yeah.
Like me.
And I mean, also like you can literally run out of mana trying to kill tanks that if they have like adaptive helm.
Yes.
Yeah. If you play what is it? Outcast, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Fiora. So W damage and slow stun duration increased. E cost flattened at all ranks. So W riposte, its slow stun duration was at 1.5 seconds. It's up to 2 seconds now. And the damage for riposte was starting at 90, scaling to 250 plus 1 ability power. Now it starts at 110 and scales to 270, still scaling or 1 plus 1 ability power. And then E blade work cost was from 40 scaling to 60. Now it's just 40 at all ranks. I think if anything, this makes you want to play around that riposte even more careful, because that was the ability that, you know, if you're a Fiora player, that's what separates the good ones from the bad ones. And if you're playing against her, that's the one you want to really be careful to play your skills against. What do you guys think about these changes?
I think what is it called? Fiora is another one of this champs, right? That shreds tanks with their passive.
Right.
So I think again that if Riot's actually going to go through with this tank meta, and I'm not just talking about this patch, but if they do things about tank meta next patch, I think they're just buffing champs like this. So if you do end up seeing tanks a lot, you have an answer to them. I mean, you already have answer to them with like Conqueror and things like that, but I think it's just giving it like a little more.
Okay, yeah, for sure. What about you, King or Superman? Anything?
Yeah, I think this is like sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier, and like what he just said is that they're buffing, they're doing a lot of buffs to tanky champions and to tank champion items, but they're also buffing champions that beat tanks like Fiora, like Gnar, like Trundle. And so because when you say tank meta, like you were saying earlier, people probably think it's the meta where you must pick tanks. Whereas I think hopefully like these kind of changes are coming from the conscious decision to say we want to make a meta where tanks are allowed and viable, but you still have answers to tanks and they're not mandatory. So I think this is a step in that direction, because this is a pretty solid buff.
Yeah, it's nice. All right. Okay, let's move on to Gnar. Just our cooldown is increased. So started at 120, scaled down to 80. Now it starts at 90, that's a 30-second difference, and scales down to 30. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big cooldown reduction. Is there going to be any implications there because of that? I mean, you're gonna be throwing people a lot more often. Any thoughts on that? I mean, other than it's a pretty big cooldown buff. I mean, I don't really know how that plays out, but yeah.
It basically just means that if you have a 40% CDR build and it's max rank, so 16 plus, then you have ultimate in mega form. That's basically what it means. Because there's already that static cooldown of you can't become enraged after going hyper back to mini form for a while. And obviously that cooldown coincides within the 30 seconds. But
that's true.
Yeah, it's basically, are you mega? If so, and with 30 to 40%, you should have ultimate, and people should respect that when playing against Gnar.
Okay.
Makes him a little bit more consistent of a champion, I would say. I think this is a healthy change. I don't think it looks huge, right? It looks like they reduced his 80-second cooldown to 30 seconds late game. That seems absurd for an ultimate for pretty much any other champion, except for if Jace had a 30-second, that would suck. But I mean, they're just making him more consistent, and I think that's healthy.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't play a lot of Gnar, so yeah, it's good to know. I'm sure Gnar players are just happy. Finally, they're probably like, yes.
I think again, this is building into what is it? Tank destroyers, right? Because Gnar is good into melee champs, so he does well against Garen. He does well against Darius. All these melee champs into Ornn. So I just think that they're making him strong. So not only would you have like the range, you'd now be able to be strong in melee as well, because you can just use your ult to disengage.
That's true.
Just to like reset the fight.
Yeah.
And this way, if I miss out, it doesn't mean I'm just gonna run it down, right? Because if I could miss out and then just wait like a couple seconds,
Yeah,
and then get it back up.
have it back up. That's true.
Because before, if you missed out, you'd have to wait a long time before you got out again.
It also made the ult, like the good, like group ults, so much sexier though, because you're like, ooh, dang, like
they'll still be
Yeah.
sexy.
They'll
could
still
get
be
a couple
sexier.
of them in a really long
Yeah.
team fight too.
But that's what I'm saying though. Like we'll see them more often, so I hope that we don't lose that awe. You know what I mean? Like,
Hell
oh
yeah.
well, I mean, you know. But if you saw it, you're like, and you understood how long those cooldowns were, and it was like not something you could just do all the time, and it happened. You're like, oh man, what
Yeah.
a beast! What a beast, literally, Nar the beast. Okay, cool. All right, let's move on to Jin. E-trap duration increase. Traps recharge faster at later ranks. Our damage multiplier increased. And level up tooltip corrected. Who cares about that? I don't even read. I'm just kidding. So E captive audience. Trap duration went up from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Trap recharge rate. One trap every used to be 28 scaling down to 24. Now it's 28 scaling down to 16. So late game, it's a pretty bigger cooldown. And then curtain call. The damage multiplier was 1 scaling to 3.5 based on targets missing health. Now it's 1 to 4 based on targets missing health. And then the tooltip thing. I don't play much Jin. I know Styles of ADC. I don't know if you play Jin, but does this help you
Yeah, I played a
late
lot of
game?
Jhin.
Does this play help you late game or even early game at all?
I don't think it would make that big a deal, but I think the ult is pretty good. Like the fact
Yeah.
that your ult does that much damage
Mhm.
is gonna be like really good. But the trap, I don't think is that big a deal. I mean,
Right.
it's good for escaping. I wouldn't say it's good for like it's not good offensively, but it's good. You can put like a bun. You could put what is it? Traps inside the bush, and if you get ganked, you know they're
Mhm.
there because they give away vision as well. And so you drop a trap every time someone dies, so that's also good.
Well, with them buffing the duration of it and then buffing the cooldown of it, it seems like you would not have to put as many traps out or wouldn't be needing to. That's kind of like doing the same thing, isn't it? Like trap duration and the recharge rate?
Well, the recharge rate is kind of not relevant because you max that last. So up until level 13,
okay.
you're still starting with the 28. So I don't think the
28.
recharge rate does anything. The duration buff is nice, and the ult buff is nice. And also, it makes a lot of sense thematically that it would increase from 1 to 4. You know,
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
I
the
know you
4.
mentioned you didn't read the lore, but
Very good, very good.
there.
Yes, the number
but I
4.
think this
y'all.
is like a buff.
I
that,
don't
like,
think you need to read the lore to understand the 4
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, I mean, it does fit thematically. We like that. I mean, I kudos for that.
It's a straight up buff to Jin in 3v3.
Is it?
I'm memeing here.
I
but
know.
yeah, trap duration 3 minutes. It's one of the few ways you can get vision on that map.
Oh
yeah.
gosh. Oh, Jin. I love
You
his
can play
voice.
Lux.
Oh
There you go.
gosh.
Kale though. Ugh.
I haven't
This
played
champ-
3v3. I only play 3v3 at the end of the season so I can get my chroma.
There you go.
yeah.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, let's talk about Kale because Kale's been that champion. You know, we did a fact check was it last week, and even though the nerfs were there, her win rate was also still there. She did get I mean, it looked like win rates against certain like counters that she had went, you know, like that there were actual more counters for her. But even then, she was still winning about 50% on those matchups across all elos too, by the way. So let's read what they did here. Base stats: her attack damage went down from 52 to 50, armor from 28 to 26, and attack speed ratio from 0.695 to 0.667. Says the number bonus attack speed uses to calculate its effectiveness, not Kale's actual attack speed. Okay. The passive Divine Ascent accessions are now based on Kale's level and skill points. I have not touched Kale since the rework because there's just too much stuff. But what do you guys think about this? Is this gonna finally bring her down a little bit, or do you think she's still gonna be a monster?
I think this sort of puts her into a fairly balanced state, I would imagine. So just looking at the nerfs, so the attack damage nerf 52 to 50, it's like this is the kind of similar to the nerf that Graves got a while back, and then he got rebuffed, the -3 AD. where it's one of those things people meme about it, but when you consider how many times you auto attack on champions like Kale and Graves in a game, having -2 damage on every single auto attack
It stacks
makes
up, yeah.
a really big difference.
And when we discuss the tank meta that's on the horizon, Kale's an interesting champion to keep in mind because as she scales later and later, she gets that true damage that can absolutely shred tanks. And
True.
even just in the notes there from Riot, what this is meant to do to her is say, if you can punish Kale early, then you should, and we want to have that window be available to you because Kale has such an advantage in late game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Curiously, though, if it goes to tank meta, there'll be very few champions played that, well, let's say if the tank meta somehow bleeds into top lane, which I don't think it will happen, but if it does, the champions like Sion and Nautilus and maybe other huge tanks from the top lane are not the types that would be able to punish her early.
That's right. Yeah, it's true. Exactly. Okay. Any other thoughts on Kale?
I think this nerf also does. They say they want to make her weak early. The attack speed ratio nerf actually does weaken her late game quite a bit more than you'd think. So basically, the way this works is that, you know, when you build attack speed items, it's a % increase in attack speed, right? Like you get 40% attack speed. So basically, what this chain does is you're getting 40% instead of getting an increase by 40% of this 0.695, you're getting increased by 40% of 0.667.
Okay.
Which means that every attack speed item you buy is that much less effective on Kale.
And your keystone.
Affect the late game.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the keystone. I don't think you took Klepto to get Elixir of Skill, though. I feel like you just took that because it was good in general, but the passive change nerfs that.
Well, what you're just talking about with attack speed, the ratio there is still pertinent when talking about, say, lethal tempo.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So prediction is Kale's win rate gonna drop? 9.8.
In solo queue,
it should definitely drop because I don't think the tank meta will be solidified quite yet.
Okay.
I don't think her win rate
still not quite here yet.
I don't think her win rate will tank, but
oh yes. Hello. Let's get a round of applause for
that joke.
Yeah. I'm very proud of that one. I very oh man, I love you for that, man. Thank you. Okay. All right. So you don't think it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's.
I love dad jokes. I'll keep them coming.
Oh yeah, please. Okay, we already talked about Master Year. Here's an interesting one, Nautilus. Okay, so I've been actually watching gameplay. I've been hearing about, you know, chatter around with all the cool kids. I'm like the old guy trying to be cool with all the cool kids, so I'm trying to sneak around. Hey, what's the scoop, man? What's happening? And word is that Nautilus mid is being played over in Korea. I've even seen it being done here by some high challenger players or high elo players. AP Nautilus, and he's getting buffed again this patch. So here it is: passive staggering blow. Root duration used to be 0.5 scaling to 1.5, and now it's starting at 0.75 and still scaling to 1.5. So it starts higher. The duration is higher at lower levels. Oh, in fact, sorry, I should have mentioned this, but it scales quicker too, because the old root duration, it wouldn't be 1.5 until you were level 18. Now you get that 1.5 duration when you're level 16. So not only does it scales higher in the beginning, but it scales quicker. And then Q, the dredge line, the damage went from 80 to 240 plus 0.75 ability power. Now it's starting at 100, scaling to 280 plus 0.9 ability power. So if anything, it's already being played AP mid. I just think we're going to see maybe an increase in this. But what are you guys' thoughts about Nautilus mid, these buffs, and just overall it being played in the mid lane? Have you guys seen it? If you have, what are your thoughts? If you think it's bad, good. Should our listeners
I haven't seen it in my I haven't seen it in my own games, but I saw Skara play it.
Yep.
I think I saw Skara play one game, and you can literally one shot with just your ulti.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't even need to hit your Q.
Yep.
And I don't know. I don't think it will be like that significant. Like I don't think you'll see a lot. Like it won't be one of the things where it's like pick ban, but I think you'll definitely see it. Like here and there.
I'm gonna tell you, you're definitely gonna see the League Dad play it. because I gotta try this out. I'm jumping right into solo duo, man. I'm just kidding. No, I won't do that.
I've seen
my
a couple
team.
of AP
Sorry.
Nautilus support.
I have not.
I wouldn't
but
say like
that's
full
interesting.
AP, but like what is it? Starting Spelthy Sedge and then building things like semi AP, like Rod of Ages, like Andrews, things like that. But not
Okay.
like full AP, like Rabadon's Death Cap, things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. All right, what about you guys? Superman casting, King Jebus, anything, Jeebus?
I don't think this is that significant. Even when if you look up Baker playing it in solo queue to try it out, probably for practice to see if they want to bring it on stage, he's still building straight tank. And maybe with this type of a change, there's arguments for going Rod of Ages instead of Abyssal Mask because these ratios are a little bit nicer. But I still don't think it's worth it. Nautilus as a champion and his kit scales way too much off of him being tanky, especially with health.
Right. Okay. So we'll have to look at that on fact check episode if this actually does anything. I'd be interested to see if it actually succeeds or if anything. But I do think we'll see more people at least try it because it looks fun. You know, I'm definitely gonna hit up a couple normal games, try it out. Do you have any thoughts on this, King? Nautilus mid.
Yeah, I've also heard whispers of Nautilus mid becoming strong. I mean, so I haven't seen it yet in my games. It seems to me like the laning phase for him would be pretty good. Mid lane, you can just pop your shield, pop your E for wave clear. Most of the mid champs can't damage you early. So obviously these buffs are pretty nice for him. I'm not really sure like if this will make AP Nautilus viable or maybe like some kind of hybrid where it was like Proto Belt and Rod of Ages, maybe things like that. I'm not really sure, but it seems like at least something worth considering.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, it's cool. Just wanted to share that, bit of tidbit that I had heard. Here's what I'm excited about: Renekton. Because if you guys don't know, every month I do like a champion series where I play that champion, as much as possible. And this month is Akali, but last month I did Renekton, and that was the first time I had done this sort of thing. And so I got to play a bunch of Renekton games, and so seeing some of these, I actually play it to rank now, and seeing some of these buffs looks pretty cool. I've only got to play one game with it. It didn't feel that different to me, but I'm not that good of a player, so I don't know if it makes more sense. But what do you guys think about these buffs? Let's look at it real quick. Base stats: health went from 572.16 just to 575. Not that big there, but health attack speed growth from 2.65% to 2.75%. Armor growth from 3.8 to 4. Looks like they're just trying to make nicer numbers here. Q Cull the Meek, healing versus champion. Used to start at 9, scaling to 27. Now it starts at 12, scaling to 36. The empowered healing, when your rage is in the red mode or above half, versus champions, it used to be starting at 27, scaling to 81. Now it starts at 36, scaling to 108. And then the empowered healing cap started at 150 and then was capped off all the way up to 450. Now it starts at 200 and it gets capped off all the way at 600 late game. So it looks like they're trying to definitely target the healing. Q Cull the Meek, that is the ability. If you ever try to kill a Renekton and they're low health and you're like, we got him. And then all of a sudden he heals a little bit and then kills you. And you're like, wait, what happened? Q was most likely the ability that they were using to get that lifesteal. So what do you guys think about this? If anything, do you think this is going to be, is this going to put Renekton any higher on the tier list at all? Because I know he's not that high up there, but I like playing him. But do you think this makes him stronger? What do you guys think?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the healing being buffed because this is the same patch that has the buffed Bramble Vest, right? So
I know. It's true.
Yeah, I feel like this is a nice buff for him that'll like make him better, but I'm not convinced that this is something that will really make him meta. It's just like a nice change. Or if you're someone who wants to play Renekton anyways, you can justify it a bit more. But I don't think he's gonna, be back to being the god of the top lane that he
I
has
know.
been in the
It's sad.
past.
I mean, I have a fun time playing him, but yeah, he definitely has some tough times against some of the top laners. And I can't ban them all, so that kind of sucks. Do you got anything, Superman or Style?
Yeah, I think it's nice. This is
Mhm.
another one of those almost quality of life only changes where,
Mm.
yeah, these are pretty good and they are somewhat across the board for him. I think these make Renekton playable once again, and great Renekton players will rejoice in the fact that they can bring this back and feel much stronger than they were before. But it's
Yeah.
not going to put Renekton in a state where he's now pick ban by any means.
Right.
Fact
Yep.
check me next week.
Yeah, well, I will fact check it. And T Cross asked about what about Ornn. We talked about Ornn earlier because we were talking about probably the biggest highlights first, and that's what one of the things they pointed out. So if you missed it, definitely go check out the VOD or the recording. But is there anything else? I did skip over Ornn because we talked about him earlier. But was there anything else y'all wanted to add to Ornn other than what we talked about earlier? No. Okay.
I don't think
Yeah.
he's in top lane. I think if he's played
Okay.
at all, then these are buffs for support Ornn. I think he's just not good in the top lane ever since they removed the shield off of his W.
I actually think these are more buffs for top lane rather than support, because the thing about his passive is you need to get a certain amount of levels to get the items and to give your teammates items. And as support, you don't really get that as much. So I think this is a much bigger buff for top lane. I think it might be enough, because again, if we are shifting towards a tankier meta, if that bleeds into the top lane, Ornn can lane fine against tank. So,
but do you actually get to build items as Ornn? Because I can't remember the last time Ornn players really actually got to play League of Legends.
Oh, I don't know the last time I saw an Ornn.
Yeah, he's just in such a like, these are fantastically, absurdly good buffs to his items. Like you mentioned earlier, Jeebus, 1,000+ gold in value, and you can get 2 of them in your own inventory and add them to your team. Yeah, late game Ornn is a real thing and scary to play against a team that has all these Living Forge upgrades. But can you really get there? And I don't believe you can. Still, he gets annihilated in lane.
That's true. Well, what did you think about this, though? If you were to play him, though, the best chance you have to get there, wouldn't it be in the top lane so you can get that experience? Because if you play him in the support lane, won't it take just that much longer to even have a chance to get some of these upgrades?
There's absolutely an argument for that. Jeebus is right that for Ornn in and of himself, then you're only going to get the value out of building 2 items. If you're in the top lane, you're never going to get to build 2 of your own items. But I think if you want to really capitalize on this in a consistent way, then taking him down in the support, you can still safer, for free upgrade your teammates' items later on in the game.
True. Well, yeah,
a little
we'll
more
see.
consistent.
I'd love to, and good. It's good 2 points of views, and you make your decisions out there on the Rift. Let us know what kind of success you guys are seeing out there. If you play him top lane or support, or let us know what you're seeing out there. Okay, let's go to Sejuani. Oh, real quickly, Ornn scaling is really up to team's ability to draw out games. Okay, Fancy Pants said I think Ornn scaling is really up to a team's ability to draw out games. What do you guys think about that? True? Drawing out games, obviously, I guess the longer you can hold off, then you can get those buffs. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like, this is maybe in solo queue, Ornn is still not going to be that great, but I think in competitive, if you have longer games, if you can fit a top lane Ornn into the draft, I mean, so these buffs, right? So like we said, these buffs increase the free stats you get from his items by 1,000, but each of his items already gives an extra 1,000 gold of stats. So now these 3 items, when you get upgraded, you're getting 2,000 gold worth of stats total now with these buffs on these items once you're hitting level 13 and upgrading them. So like if you can get to that point in competitive, I think it's just an extremely huge advantage that you're going to have that I think it will make it worth picking, and I think we will see some Ornn at MSI.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Right here.
I'm excited. I love it. I'm excited to, that's kind of what we want to hear, what, your predictions about some of these changes. So I'd like to see also if it does increase his play in 9.8. So we'll find out on the fact checked episode. Let's move on to Sejuani.
I hope not.
Oh, well, we'll have to see. I personally hope not either, because Ornn,
So boring to
Brings back
watch.
bad memories for me. But anyways, all right, let's go to Sejuani. W damage ratio increase. So it says they want to buff her scaling to help her clear speed, gank potential, and team fight presence without making her too overwhelming in all three fields. So her W, Winter's Wrath, first cast damage ratio was 1.5% of Sejuani's max health. Now it's 2% Sejuani's max health. The second cast damage ratio was 4.5% of Sejuani's max health. Now it's 6% Sejuani's max health. Anything on that? And it seems like a little more damage, I guess, on the W.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these buffs. Like, there's a lot of these buffs
Yeah.
this patch where it's just like, it's nice by itself. It's not super game changing, but like,
Yeah.
combined with other buffs, it's gonna push in that. Like, for instance, the Cinder Hulk and the Bramble Vest buffs. Those are
Sure.
like the Cinder Hulk one, especially. That's pretty much a direct buff to Sejuani. You're never building anything
Yeah.
besides Cinder Hulk,
Exactly.
unless
Yep.
you're going full 1000 AP Sejuani with Runic Echoes, the Night Blue style. But I don't think
Okay.
that's
Okay.
something for us to consider here. But I think this is like another thing that's like, Sejuani was a good jungler for a while. She's sort of been overshadowed by Jarvan and Rek'Sai at the moment.
Definitely.
But maybe this pushes people towards picking Sejuani again.
Good point.
All right. Let's move on to Singe. Base health regen increase, W slow increase, E cost decrease. So base stats, his health regen went from 8 to 9.5. His W, the mega adhesive, the slow was 40%. Now it's at 60%. Gosh, that's slow. Oh my gosh. E, the fling. Oh my gosh, 60%. That is gigantic. The fling. Cost was 80, scaling to 140 mana. Now it's 60, scaling to 100, so lower mana cost on the fling. I'm just thinking about that adhesive. Holy cow, that's
Time for
already-
Singe bans.
Oh my gosh, just for that, I think. I just don't want to see this ever in a game. Holy
I knew.
cow.
You knew that the nerf was coming. The buff was coming because they
Yeah.
hard nerfed. What is it? Dark Seal.
Dark Seal,
And
yeah.
what is it? He was the OG by like 5
Yeah,
Dark
buy
Seals or
5 dark,
something.
yeah, sure. Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I haven't seen that many Singe changes, probably because of that Dark Seal thing. But do you guys have any thoughts on the Singed buffs?
This
Yeah.
is a kind response to the Dark Seal hard nerf.
Yeah, oh my
and
gosh,
They hit
seriously.
him more than anyone else.
Yeah, 100%. Oh well, okay, no, I'll take that back. I was like, you know what? I saw a lot of double Dark Seals competitive. I was like, wait, they were still on the old patches. Okay, never
Yeah,
mind. Yeah, okay. So
I mean, you can still do it if you're like
Yeah.
confident in your ability not to
Oh.
sell them all.
That's not me. But
I think
hey,
any
yeah.
more than 2 is a big no, but like 2,
Yeah.
you can get away with.
I think it's like one of those things where it's like, it's like Cinder Hulk on Sejuani. It's like you just sort of have to build it on Singe, whether
Sure, yeah,
it's that good or not. So then if it gets nerfed, it's
it's a nerf to you.
it's kind of a
I
direct
think it's
nerf.
just about wanting like free stuff, so I'll never sell my Dark Seal. I'll just build a Magi's if I have to.
It's like, I don't care. I'm just gonna build it anyways. Doesn't matter. Okay,
That's true. I guess if you build Magi's, it's not affected by the nerf, really.
that's
So,
right. If you always planned
good
on building
idea.
Magi's anyways, if you're like, you know what, I don't care.
I play,
I'm
what is
building
it,
it no
Lux
matter
bottom
what.
lane, and I
Oh,
build
yeah.
Magi's every single time.
Yes, true
Get
support right
assists from
there.
1,200 units away. It's fair.
Oh yes.
That's the thing. I hate Lux support. Like if I see Lux support in my games, I dodge.
I like
But-
playing it actually.
But then I
like
play
playing
Lux
it.
support. But then I play Lux ADC.
Oh my
Rude.
gosh. Yeah, I played one game of Lux support like 2 days ago. It was awesome. I was like 8-1 and 24 or something like that. It's beautiful.
In
Anyway,
normals, I don't care, right? I mean, if I see the Lux support first,
yeah.
then I can play something like Heimerdinger or something like a mage, right? But with
Yeah.
ADCs, like if you play Jinx with the Lux and Lux misses her Q, you die.
Yeah.
You just automatically die.
Hey, let's try that one time, man. I'll keep you alive. Just trust. We have friendship, remember? The power of friendship. You don't believe it? Okay. Whatever, man. Whatever.
No,
okay,
the thing is, if I play on NA, I can't play, what is it,
ADC,
things like
that's true.
Heimerdinger and things
Yeah.
like that.
ping too strong. Okay, let's hit up Zed because that's a pretty significant nerf, I guess. I never play. I mean, he was just rampant this past patch. I would always ban him pretty much. So his Q, his Razor Shuriken, base damage was 90 scaling to 230. Now it's 80 scaling to 220. W Living Shadow cooldown was 20 seconds scaling down to 14. Now it's up to 22 seconds scaling down to 14. So they made it a little bit longer early in the earlier stages, but it still does end up scaling down to 14 late game. And they did just release a new skin, I think, right? So a lot of people are gonna want to play Zed, and they're probably gonna fail miserably. Hopefully,
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay. Maybe they won't read the patch notes, and they're like, "Yes."
That's my
Zed.
favorite. When I see
Yes.
people like building an item that's just got like hard nerfed, or they're playing a champion that's trash.
Okay, you want a good example? I was playing Rank Flex today. I had a Jax who built Essence Reaver.
Oh yes.
Essence Reaver with crit, not Spear of Shojin,
Oh,
which I think is what he
jeez.
wanted. That's,
man.
That's how bad it is.
I will say
I
I've
mean,
still seen Lissandra players even with that huge nerf Q, and it irks me. But for some reason, maybe it's solo Q, but they seem to, at least in my game, seem to have done well later. But early on,
F's in
it definitely
chat.
sucked. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on anything? Now I'll open it up to you guys because there's a bunch of items and they changed coup. Actually, let's talk about coup de gras really
Wait, I
quick.
had one thing I wanted to say about Zed actually.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So basically, I think the Zed change is actually sort of the opposite in the sense of a lot of the change we've been seeing, where a lot of the changes on this patch are buffs to champions that are good in a tank meta, as well as, and then so like for instance, a Trundle, Fiora, and Gnar buffs, those get buffed, and if the meta shifts to favor them more, it's sort of a double buff in that sense.
Sure.
Whereas for Zed, this is a nerf, and Zed does not want the tank meta, so it's sort of a double nerf to
Double
him,
nerf, yeah.
where he's getting directly nerfed, and then indirectly, Zed is not very good in the tank meta. You know, we were talking about Nautilus mid earlier. What's Zed gonna do into Nautilus?
Yeah, that's a really
Absolutely
good
not.
point. Yeah, it's almost like you're right, almost like two nerfs here. So
Because this nerf by itself, I think, is not super heavy. But if the meta shifts to make Zed worse, then at least he won't be too much in the gutter like a lot of
Yeah.
other champs end up being.
yeah, it's a really really good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. Okay, anything else on Zed before I move on? All right, so we're about an hour, maybe a little bit more. So I didn't want to talk about any of these specifically, but maybe coup de gras, because I know some people take that. So basically, they're just taking away the adaptive force for 10 seconds afterwards, I believe. So it no longer grants 9 bonus attack damage or 15 ability power for 10 seconds on champion takedown. Bonus damage, though, has gone up from 7 to 8% to champs below 40% max health. You guys think
It's
that
direct.
does anything?
Yeah, it's a direct nerf to pentakills.
Yeah, because that's always the thing that for people like, I mean, I take it on a lot of champions, and so I'm wondering if do you think this pushes it to any of the other runes, like maybe Last Stand or something?
I think all these runes are like team comp dependent. So if you see that they have a lot of tanks, you take the other one.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called in
Cut
specific.
Cut down.
Cut
Yeah.
down.
And then if you're playing things like dive champions like Xin Zhao, things like that, Karthus maybe, then you take the other one where if you're low you do more damage.
Yeah.
But traditionally I don't think it will affect whether you take coup de gras. I'll like almost always take coup de gras when I'm playing bot lane because it's just, what else are you gonna take, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're not gonna take the other ones against things like unless they have like, what is it, 3 tanks, because nowadays you almost never see 3 tanks. You see 2 tanks at most.
Yeah, I really like this change. Not necessarily. I don't even know if this is a buff or a nerf. Really, I don't know. It's a buff in 1v1 situations for sure. I'm not sure if it's like a nerf in team fights or not. But the reason I like this is because it makes it much more consistent with the other runes, and it's much easier to compare with with the runes in that row, with Cut Down and Last Stand, because those Cut Down and Last Stand are also conditional percent damage increases, and so now it's like you just directly have, you have coup de grace does bonus damage with this condition, last stand does bonus damage with this condition, cut down.
Yeah,
with this condition, you don't have to worry about, well, how much is the adaptive force factor into it. You can just just look at it and say, okay, I think this condition is more likely to be met, so I want this rune for more damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. All right. So as we wrap it up, do you guys have any, predictions going into 9.8? Yeah, this is the time where you can have fun and just say, I think, AP Jarvan top lane is gonna be good this, whatever it is. Do you guys have any thoughts on what we may see going into this patch? Any predictions, or is this patch just kind of meh, nothing really crazy? I want you guys to be Nostradamus here for a second. Do you guys have anything?
Hecarim's still unbalanced.
Okay.
I'm so surprised there's nothing in the patch about it. Like they haven't touched that champion since he became overpowered.
It's because if you see Hecarim, you just pick Akali.
Yeah,
it's true.
I think Akali does really well. Yeah. I haven't seen. I don't think in EU it's that big of a. You don't see much Hecarim top. I think the only Hecarim top I saw just ran it down.
Yeah, that's true. I actually don't see it that much in my gold elo, so it's not that bad. But yeah,
you didn't see it high plat either.
Really?
In EU, I don't know about NA.
And
in the jungle, it's suppressive.
Is it?
I've seen a lot of it in the jungle. Yeah. Jungle, I've seen it.
Sonateric still a thing. I've been playing that. Been having fun with it.
I think they haven't done anything.
Is it?
Yeah, the grievous wounds on
you
Bramble.
Think so?
If there's tanks that find themselves blind pickable, then
I don't think it's gone completely, but yeah.
I mean, I don't think the grievous wound change is gonna hurt it that much.
All right, just pick Blue Cane into it then.
Because I think it's not. I think it's still not clear how strong of a strategy that is. Like whether it's good because people haven't seen it, or whether it's like good in its own right and like what the counters are.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's gone. I think we'll see it at MSI for sure. I'll make that.
I can't.
Spicy.
As well as Ornn top. I think we'll see at least one game of Ornn top and at least one game of Sonateric at MSI.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know about Ornn top, but you'll definitely see Sonateric.
They're not feeling you on the Ornn top there, King, but I
love it. I'm not feeling Ornn anywhere.
Oh, he said Ornn anywhere. So you don't think Ornn anywhere even support, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it could be picked, but I don't think they'll win.
All right.
Well, that's a different issue, though.
Yeah. He's just saying he's going to see it. You're going to see it.
A lot of the times it's like, if the worst team picks it, then they're not winning anything.
I want to see what is it, Skarner bans.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Oh gosh, I know. Okay.
I think we'll see Nautilus lose games at MSI.
Nautilus
you
mid
think
or just Nautilus?
That's my bold prediction. Someone will pick Nautilus mid and they'll lose because of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Faker Nautilus mid.
Ugh, get me out.
Unless Faker plays it, then it's game over. It's whatever. All right, guys. That's gonna wrap it up for the patch notes. But be sure, remember, next Monday we'll do an episode on Fact Check to see if any of these changes that have been made, if it actually made a difference on the Rift. Guys, if you have questions or any feedback or anything you want us to talk about or address, then feel free to email us at the allinpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at the allinpodcast. But I want to thank my host King Jeeves, Style on him, and who's Superman Casting. Like, you guys really have contributed a lot of good viewpoints, so I appreciate you guys coming on. But until then, guys, try not to be too toxic on the Rift. Enjoy your climb, and we will see you guys on the next episode.